Hello guys, my name is George. In Chapter 2 we will be covering a lot of things from the branches of government to the types of feudalism. In order to understand everything, let's start with the concept of gridlock. Gridlock is seen in controversial policies like environmental policies, healthcare, and energy policies. Gridlock happens when politicians are unable to compromise in a way that permits public policy action. Federalism is a system of government designed by the U.S. Constitution in which power is divided between the national government and the states. There's three different types of federalism. The first one is called dual federalism. It was popular between the 18th and 19th centuries. In this one, the federal government was limited to larger issues. And later, it evolved into something called cooperative federalism, popular in the 20th century, generally beginning in the 30s with FDR and the New Deal. It was a collaboration on policymaking with the federal government and the state governments increased. Later on in the 70s, new federalism began with Nixon and continued into the 80s. States here were given federal funds but granted more policy-making discretion. If you want to learn more about federalism, please click the link below and it's going to take you to a crash course on federalism. Thank you. As of right now, the state variation in policy capacity is categorized as decentralized. This means that more power is going to the states as of this moment. Some of the problems is that in different states, cultures are different, resources are different. This leads to inequality among citizens of different states. Usually, the federal government is likely to intervene when a state's policies are so different from other states that its citizens are deprived of essential human needs or federally protected rights. In this type of capacity, citizens suffer due to policy performance variations from state to state. States with more money, expertise can design, provide better programs and services. Disproportionate lobbying influences of businesses at state local level is another variable. And then the decision making is less open and visible at a state level. If you want to learn more about division of government, please follow this TED Talk link. It's going to tell you a little bit more about the division of government. Thank you. The separation of powers was, per the Constitution, governing power is shared among the three branches of government: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. The main purpose of this was because of the founders. They rationalized it and they decided that there was a check and balances needed to be built into the system of the separate powers. They would ensure that no one branch of government would have enough power to threaten liberty. The problems with this type of government is that it's not easy to identify and define problems, develop suitable solutions, and approve those solutions in such a fragmented governing system. So some argue that the downside to the separation of powers is gridlock and complexity in governing and the policy making. The legislative branch is also called the bicameral. It consists of the House of Representatives, the Senate. Together they make up the U.S. Congress. There are many differences between the two houses, but some of the differences include the term length, the constituencies, and how they're elected. Congress's main duties are lawmaking and budget. Both of these houses operate under a system allowing for division of labor and policy specialization. For example, like committees and subcommittees. If you want to hear more about the bicameral government or you want to learn more, please follow this link. It's going to take you to a crash course. I hope you enjoy it. Bye. The executive branch is comprised of the president, vice president, the White House staff, the federal bureaucracy, and others. The president, along with the vice president, are the only federal officials who are elected nationally and are actively involved in agenda setting, policy formation, and implementation. EOP, also known as the mini bureaucracy, includes such offices as OMB, Council of Economics Advisors, and the NSC, and they assist the president and his staff in policy development by providing vital information and policy ideas. And then the federal bureaucracy, the bulk of the executive branch, that includes all of the offices, agencies that fall under each of the 15 cabinet level departments. There's also the independent executive agencies, part of the federal bureaucracy, but outside of the cabinet departments, such as the NASA, CIA, and NRC. These federal agencies actually make policy in their particular specialization area through their interpretation of legislative language and their development of regulations to implementate policy. The judicial branch is comprised of 9 members of the U.S. Supreme Court, 13 Federal Circuit Court of Appeal judges, and 94 federal district courts. It also includes special courts, Bankruptcy, Armed Services Court of Criminal Appeals, and federal claims. If you want to learn more about this kind of appeals, the courts, the judiciary branch, all these things, follow this link. It's called Hip Hughes History on Judicial Branch. One of the differences between this branch and other branches is that it affects upon policy making. It's actually reactive rather than proactive. These court decisions really depend upon the citizenry willingness to abide by the court ruling, and therefore motivates judges to not deviate from general acceptance legal rationales for their decision. So I had a really tough time understanding the iron triangles, but here I have a Hip Hughes history video. You can follow the link and it's going to tell you a little bit more about the iron triangles. It's very well explained by Hip Hughes. Essentially, in the United States politics, the iron triangle is comprised of the policy-making relationships among the congressional committees, the bureaucracy, and the interest groups. This power is exercised in the Congress and particularly in congressional committees and subcommittees, like I said, by aligning itself with selected constituencies. An agency may be able to affect policy outcomes by directly in these committees and subcommittees. This is where an iron triangle may manifest itself. The picture above displays the concept. The public opinion is rarely the determinant influence on policymaking, but does set boundaries on public policy actions. The public opinion can be expressed by voting polls, surveys, attending meetings, joining interest groups, and things like that. There's 2 different concepts that I would like you to understand: the silency and stability. It is called silency or low silency. That basically means that the public was not well informed and therefore not motivated to act upon a particular policy issue. On the other hand, stability is basically a continuation of an opinion over time. The more stable public opinion is on an issue, the more likely policymakers will pay attention to that issue. In this slide, we're going to talk about interest groups and public policy. Interest groups are a major influence on public policy. In general, there are 2 types: public interest groups and special interest groups. The main activity of interest groups is lobbying, providing information to legislators on the group's policy views, summaries of public-related studies in the group, the studies that the group has conducted. Other things that they might do is actually lobbying, like I said, conducting studies and providing results to Congress, advertising, and then campaigning for candidates, and also litigating. If you want to hear more about interest groups, there's a really cool video about it. It's by Crash Course. You can follow this link and it'll take you, and you can look at it, learn more about the interest groups and what they're about. in the end, it's all about the gridlock, government gridlock, actually. It's funny that we come back to this because the framers basically wanted us to know that we should not be making any decisions, out of haste. They really wanted us to do a collaborative effort in doing any policy making decisions. Sometimes policymakers are able to overcome gridlock through incremental policymaking adjustments made at the margins of existing policies through minor amendments or the gradual extension of a program mandate. Thank you again for watching my presentation. I really enjoyed doing my presentation. Please leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and put a comment. Everything is appreciated. Again, thank you. Thank you for my classmates for watching this. I know it took me a while, but thank you again. Bye.